5. Sports. Listening activity number 1. The football game. You are going to hear a talk about football. Listen to the talk and choose the correct answer.
Football is the most popular sport in the world. It is estimated that around 250 million people regularly play, whilst many millions more watch the game on television. In the UK, teams such as Manchester United and Chelsea compete in the Premier League. The Premier League, also called the Premiership, is the division where the 20 best English teams play. Premiership players can earn millions of pounds every year, not only from their wages, but also from sponsorship by companies like Nike and Adidas. Football has a vocabulary of its own. A game of football is known as a football match. The match kicks off when the referee blows his whistle and the ball is kicked for the first time. The aim of the game is to score more goals than the other team. The referee makes sure that both teams play by the rules. If the ball goes out of the sides of the pitch, he gives a throw-in. If the ball leaves the ends of the pitch, a corner is given. When a player commits a foul, the referee may give the other team a free kick or even give him a penalty. In extreme cases, the referee may send off a player by giving him a red card.
Listening activity number 2. Training camps. News from the United Kingdom. You are going to hear some news. Listen to the news, complete the statements, and then indicate whether the statements are true or false.
Lord Coe, chairman of the London Organising Committee of the Olympic Games, has revealed the names of more than 600 sporting venues across the UK which have been lined up to host visiting Olympic teams for training camps ahead of the 2012 Games in London. The 2012 chairman issued a list of a record number of venues they have deemed appropriate for Olympic preparation. Overseas teams will be given the list at the Beijing Games in August 2008. We said that we wanted the London Games to be for athletes, and the facilities listed in this guide will really help overseas athletes prepare well, Coe said. It also provides a great opportunity for towns throughout the UK to get involved in our plans. The process we have been through shows a great spread of high-quality facilities throughout the UK that can be used by elite-level athletes. Around 35% of the facilities are in London and in the South East, with 4% in Scotland, 4% in Northern Ireland, and 5% in Wales. Outside London and the South East, the northwest of England is the biggest provider, with more than 60 venues, 11% of the total being chosen. London organisers have promised visiting Olympic teams a credit of up to £25,000 to encourage teams to base themselves in the UK. Ken Livingstone, London's mayor, welcomed the news that 96 sports centres and facilities across the capital had been selected to appear in the National Guide. This shows what an excellent range of sporting facilities is currently available to Londoners, and which might in 2012 be used by some of the world's greatest athletes, he said.
Listening activity number 3. Do you like sport? On a beautiful Sunday in May, Paul and his friends are playing basketball in school. Listen to the following conversation, choose the correct answer, and then indicate whether the statements are true or false.
Hey, Paul, did you used to play basketball or in school or something?
Yeah, in fact, I was on the team.
I thought so. You were really good.
Thanks. Actually, I used to play everything. Volleyball, basketball, football, softball, you name it. But not anymore. Now I just watch sports on TV.
Do you ever wish you'd kept playing professionally or something?
Yeah, sometimes. But if I had, I wouldn't have time for all the other things I care about.
But you don't watch sports on TV much now.
No, I only watch TV on weekends.
Hey, that reminds me. The Wimbledon tennis tournament is next week. Do you ever watch tennis, Paul?
No, I like football better myself.
How come?
Oh, I guess I like team sports, and tennis doesn't seem as exciting as football somehow.
Well, as you mentioned football, I really have a question about it.
What is it?
I'm a little confused about American football and soccer. People often talk about them. Are they different sports?
Yes, American football and soccer, known as football in most places outside the United States, are entirely different sports. The greatest difference is that in American football, the ball can be handled, while in soccer it cannot. And also, the ball is different. American football is played with an egg-shaped ball instead of a round ball, and in the United States, American football is played on a field, whereas in the United Kingdom, soccer is played on a football pitch.
I see.
Let's go to have some cold drinks. I'm thirsty.
Listening activity number 4. Mountaineers. You are going to hear a talk about mountaineers. Listen to the talk, complete the statements, and then answer the questions. Good morning, everyone. With me in the studio now is this morning's guest, Michael Smith, a very experienced mountaineer. Today, he's going to tell us his story in the mountains. How did you become a mountaineer?
Well, the lure of the mountains has always been there for me. Maybe it is being born into a family of mountain climbers, or maybe it's just the magic of the Northwest. But to me, there is nothing like it. My biological father first climbed Mount Rainier at the age of 16 and was killed in a climbing accident on Mount Hood when he was 21. Coincidentally, at the same age, I first climbed Mount Hood. My stepfather and mother were both climbers as well, and they climbed Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams, Mount Rainier, Mount Baker, Mount Jefferson, and Mount Shuksan, among others. After several of their closest friends were killed on Mount Hood several years ago, they decided to pursue other recreation. My wife Sandra has agreed to try mountaineering. We thought this day would never come, but come it has. I gave in to play soccer with her, and she gave in to climb mountains with me. It sounds fair enough, doesn't it? We've peaked Mount St. Helens together, up Monitor Ridge to the crater. Here are some pictures we took on Mount St. Helens. In May 2001, we climbed Mount St. Helens again, this time up Worm Flows, on Mother's Day, wearing dresses in respect to a time-honoured tradition among area mountaineers. Then, in June 2001, we climbed the 12,276-foot Mount Adams, the third highest peak in the Cascade Mountains, behind Mount Rainier and Mount Shasta. In June 2002, we bagged South Sister, the third highest peak in Oregon, and 3 weeks later, I soloed Middle Sister, another 10,000-foot volcano in the Cascade Range. If you have any questions or any suggestions, please email us. Thank you.
Listening activity number 5. The Wimbledon Tennis Championship. You are going to hear an introduction to the Wimbledon Tennis Championship. Listen to the introduction, complete the statements, and then answer the questions. The Wimbledon Tennis Championship is one of the 4 Grand Slams, the 4 most important tournaments in the world. The others being the French Open, the US Open, and the Australian Open. Wimbledon is the most important sporting event of the British summer. Since the first tournament was played in 1877 in front of a few hundred spectators, the competition has become a global sporting event attended by over 500,000 people and watched on television by millions. The world's top tennis players agree that playing at Wimbledon is an experience like no other. John McEnroe, a 3-time Wimbledon winner, describes Wimbledon as the hallowed ground of the sport. Although the Wimbledon Tennis Championship has been in existence for more than a century, the sport of tennis has a much longer history. Most experts agree that the modern game has its origins in a courtyard ball game played by French monks in the 11th century. For this reason, many of the words used in tennis are of French origin. The unusual terms used in scoring a tennis match are English versions of French words. Deuce comes from the French word deux, meaning 2. The word love, meaning 0, also has French origins. Much has changed since the first Wimbledon tournament in 1877. The first champion, Spencer Gore, won a prize of £12. This year the prize money is £630,000. Indeed, success in tennis championships is a very lucrative business. The 2004 Wimbledon champion, Roger Federer, has won nearly $17 million in prize money since turning professional in 1998. Even more impressive, Serena and Venus Williams have won a staggering $30 million between them over the last 10 years. Although Wimbledon has traditionally been dominated by Americans and Europeans, other countries are beginning to produce world-class players. However, Li Ting and Sun Tiantian, who won gold medals at the Athens Olympics, will not play at Wimbledon this year. They are currently seeded 146 and 152, respectively. In future, all Chinese competitors will be under pressure to do well. Their coach, Zhang Hongwei, has gone on record as saying, "My first target is to lift my players into the top 30. Olympic gold is not enough." Listening activity number 6. Sports and recreation. You will hear a conversation between Dana and John. Listen to the conversation, complete the statements, and then answer the questions.
Hi, John. Do you watch a lot of sports on TV?
Not really, but I like to do sports.
What kind of sports do you like to do?
My wife and I like to do sports together, and we love the outdoors. We spend most of the summer and fall to do mountain biking, golfing, and playing tennis. During the winters, we usually go walking in the mountains. And when the summer vacation comes, we go to the warm and sunny places to go scuba diving.
You two make the best couple since both of you have the same interests.
Yes, I think so. We like many sports and outdoor activities, and we are always interested in trying something new and exciting. Next on our list is probably rock climbing, if Sandra can overcome her fear of snakes. Who knows? Perhaps we'll get a chance to explore this sport this summer. Do you like sport, Dana?
Yes, I watch a lot of sports on TV, but I'm not very good at sports.
Oh, really? What kind of sports do you watch?
I like to watch basketball. I watch a lot of volleyball and Formula One racing. Do you know how many people play basketball in the world?
Not really.
FIBA, International Basketball Federation, claims over 400 million people play basketball in the world.
This seems quite a lot.
Yes, and some other interesting facts are stated by the Federation. One is that Formula One racing has the largest television viewing audience in the world, with the Formula One Championship bringing in 40 billion viewers annually.
Wow, I can't believe that so many people watch that championship. That's very interesting.
Another one is that FIVB, International Volleyball Federation, claims nearly 1 billion people play volleyball in the world.
Oh, it's about 1 out of every 6 people. That's really interesting.
People say that there are 33 million registered players, but there are many more recreational players, obviously, but not 1 billion.
Listening activity number 7. Sports in Britain. Part 1. You will hear a talk about sports in Britain. Listen to the first part of the talk, complete the statements, and then indicate whether the statements are true or false.
Today, I'm going to talk about sports in Britain. Sports play an important part in British life. Many of the world's most famous sports began in Britain, including cricket, football, lawn tennis, golf, and rugby. England's national sport is cricket. Although many people believe football is their national sport. Cricket is played on village greens and in towns and cities on Sundays from April to August. Football or soccer. Football is undoubtedly the most popular sport in England and has been played for hundreds of years. Some of England's football teams are world famous, the most famous ones being Manchester United, Arsenal and Liverpool. In the English Football League, there are 92 clubs. They are semi-professional, so most players have other full-time jobs. Hundreds of thousands of people also play football in parks and playgrounds just for fun. The highlight of the English football year is the FA, Football Association Cup Final, each May. The first set of laws of the game of football or soccer dates back to the formation of the Football Association in England in 1863. Rugby. Rugby originated at the Rugby School in Warwickshire. It is similar to football, but played with an oval ball. Players can carry the ball and tackle each other. The best rugby teams compete in the Super League final each September. For many years, rugby was only played by the rich upper classes, but now it is popular all over the country. There are two different types of rugby: rugby league, played mainly in the north of England, and rugby union, played in the rest of England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland. England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, together with France and Italy, play in an annual tournament called the Six Nations. Tennis. The world's most famous tennis tournament is Wimbledon. It started at a small club in South London in the 19th century. It begins on the closest Monday to June the 22nd, at a time when England often has the finest weather. Millions of people watch the championships live on TV. It is traditional for visitors to eat strawberries and cream while they watch the tennis match. Wimbledon is the oldest of all the major tennis tournaments, beginning in 1877. The awarding of prize money began in 1968, when the total was £26,150, about $40,000.
Listening activity number 8. Sports in Britain, Part 2. Now you are going to hear the second part of the talk about sports in Britain. Listen to the recording, complete the statements below, and then indicate whether the statements are true or false.
Today, I'm going to talk about some sports which are also popular pastimes enjoyed by British people. Horse racing. Horse racing is a very popular sport in Britain. The Derby was the first grand national horse race in the world and originated here. Horse racing is a popular spectator sport. People can place bets on the races at legal off-track betting shops. Some of the best-known horse races are held at Ascot and Epsom. Ascot, a small town in the south of England, becomes the centre of the horse racing world for 1 week in June. It's called Royal Ascot because the Queen always goes to Ascot. She has a lot of racehorses and likes to watch racing. Boat racing. In the 19th century, students at Oxford and Cambridge, Britain's two oldest universities, were huge fans of rowing. In 1829, the two schools challenged each other to a race at the River Thames. The Oxford boat won, and a tradition was born. Today, the university boat race is held every spring in either late March or early April. Boxing. Boxing, in its modern form, is based on the rules established in 1865. In the UK, boxing is both amateur and professional, and strict medical regulations are applied in both situations. Golf. Scotland is traditionally regarded as the home of golf. There are over 400 golf courses in Scotland alone. The most important golf club in Scotland is in the seaside town of St Andrews, near Dundee. Darts. Darts is a very popular pub game. The game of darts, as it is today, was invented in the north of England in a town called Grimsby. However, the origins of the game date back to at least the Middle Ages. Boxing Day hunts. Traditionally, Boxing Day is a day for fox hunting. The huntsmen and huntswomen ride horses. They use dogs too. The dogs, or foxhounds, follow the smell of the fox. Then the huntsmen and huntswomen follow the hounds. Before a Boxing Day hunt, the huntsmen and huntswomen drink hot wine. But the tradition of December the 26th is changing. Now, some people want to stop Boxing Day hunts and other hunts too. They don't like fox hunting. For them, it is not a sport. It is cruel. Swimming and basketball are also popular and enjoyed by British people. Over 3 million people participate in basketball in the UK.
Listening activity number 9. English football. You are going to hear a talk about English football. Listen to the talk, complete the statements below, and then answer the questions. Football is the most popular sport in the world. In many countries around the world, football is the national sport, and millions participate in and watch football. The World Cup is one of the 2 biggest world sporting events, the other being the Olympics. In England, football is almost like a religion. Every week, thousands turn out to watch their favourite teams such as Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea and Liverpool. These world-famous teams compete in the English Premier League, also called the Premiership, a division containing the top 20 teams in England. Most people in England have a team, a football club that they support. Usually, people support their local team, although some of the bigger clubs have supporters throughout the country. Even in the lower leagues, clubs have large numbers of fans, and they're just as passionate as those in the Premier League. Indeed, some suggest that you're not a real football lover unless you support a smaller club. Supporting a smaller, less successful team demonstrates that you love only football and not glory. The results each week greatly influence the lives of people in England, and the successful weekend of a team makes a happy week for their supporters. Sometimes this passion goes too far. Not long ago, English football was living through some dark times, and the number of fans was falling. During the 1980s, hooliganism was a cancer in English football. Supporters of rival clubs would regularly fight each other, and many fans stopped attending football matches. After a series of ugly incidents, the football authorities took several steps to deal with hooliganism. Today, Premiership matches are some of the safest in the world, as the stadiums have been redesigned to be seating only, not standing, and are now much safer, and security has been greatly increased, although there are still some incidents when English football fans travel abroad. With these changes, football fans have flooded back, especially families, and English football is booming again. The Premier League is now the most watched football league in the world, with fans in almost every country. International fans love the passionate nature of English football, and this passion is reflected in the English fans. Listening activity number 10. History of the Olympic Games. You are going to hear a talk on the history of the Olympic Games. Now, listen to the talk, complete the statements, and then answer the questions.
The best amateur athletes in the world match skills and endurance in a series of contests called the Olympic Games. Almost every nation sends teams of selected athletes to take part. The purposes of the Olympic Games are to foster the ideal of a sound mind in a sound body, and to promote friendship among nations. The Olympic Games are named for athletic contests held in ancient Greece for almost 12 centuries. They were banned in AD 394, but were revived, and the first modern Olympic Games opened in 1896. The Winter Games were added in 1924. World War I and World War II forced cancellation of the Olympics in 1916, 1940, and 1944, but they resumed in 1948 and are held every 4 years. After 1992, the Winter and Summer Games were no longer held within the same calendar year. Winter Games were scheduled for 1994, after only a 2-year interval, and every 4 years thereafter. The Summer Games were scheduled for 1996, and every 4 years thereafter. The flag reinforces the idea of the Olympic movement's universality, and it brings together all the countries of the world. A Frenchman, Pierre de Coubertin, the father of the modern Olympic Games, explained the meaning of the flag in 1931. The Olympic flag has a white background with 5 interlaced rings in the center: blue, yellow, black, green, and red. This design is symbolic. It represents the 5 continents of the world, united by Olympism, while the 6 colors are those that appear on all the national flags of the world at the present time. At the Olympic Games, the flag is brought into the stadium during the opening ceremony. After its arrival, the flag is hoisted up the flagpole. It must fly in the stadium during the whole of the Games. When the flag is lowered at the closing ceremony, it signals the end of the Games. The mayor of the host city of the Games passes the Olympic flag to the mayor of the next host city of the Games. The universality conveyed by the rings and the flag was a new idea at the beginning of the 20th century. Nationalism was very strong, and tension between certain countries was high. It was in this climate, however, that Coubertin proposed a symbol which aimed to encourage world unity. The development and governance of the modern games are vested in the International Olympic Committee, IOC, founded in Paris in 1894. Its headquarters are in Lausanne, Switzerland. The original committee had 14 members. Today, there are about 70. These individuals are considered ambassadors from the committee to their national sports organizations and are dedicated to promoting amateur athletics. Normally, there is only one member from each country. Presidents of the IOC are elected for an 8-year term and eligible for a succeeding 4-year term. Each country sending teams to the Games must have its own National Olympic Committee. By 1988, there were 167 such committees. One responsibility of a national committee is arranging for its team's participation in the Games, providing equipment, and getting the team to the game site and into specially arranged housing.
Listening activity number 11. The Olympic Games in China before 1949. You will hear a talk about the Olympic Games in China before 1949. Listen to the talk, complete the statements, and then answer the questions.
In 1908, the Olympic Games were first mentioned in a Chinese magazine. Already in 1922, Wang Zhengting became the first Chinese member of the IOC, International Olympic Committee. In 1928, China delegated the first observer to the Games in Amsterdam. When rumors spread in 1932 that the government of the Japanese puppet state Manchukuo had plans to participate in the Games in Los Angeles, a delegation of 5, one of them being a participating athlete, was quickly put together. The Chinese sprinter Liu Changchun entered the 100 meters sprint as well as the 200 meters, but could not qualify for the final. China's participation in the 10th Olympic Games in 1932, although with only one athlete, aroused worldwide attention. At the same time, the Chinese government felt quite uneasy about public opinion that the largest country should be represented by just one participant. In 1935, or 1 year before the 11th Olympics, it appropriated nearly 200,000 yuan for preparations, choosing the best athletes and opening up a number of training classes. A delegation was organized, consisting of 69 competitors for track and field, swimming, basketball, football, weightlifting, boxing, and cycling. 39 observers and 9 demonstrators of the traditional Chinese martial art of wushu. In addition, it was accompanied by 150 journalists and visitors to Berlin at their own expense. No Olympic Games were held for the 12th and 13th Olympiads because of the Second World War. In 1947, China started preparations for the 14th Olympic Games, slated for the next year. Selective trials and intensive training were held for the 10,000 meters, 400 meters and marathon races, 400-meter hurdles, 100-meter freestyle swimming, 1,000-meter cycling, basketball and football in the hope of tallying some points. Nevertheless, the Kuomintang government was only lukewarm about participation in the Olympics, allotting no more than $25,000 for it, with a deficit of $70,000 to $80,000 to be collected by the delegation itself, which was thus placed in an awkward position. On the other hand, the Chinese people and athletes in particular displayed much enthusiasm for the Olympics. Part of the needed funds were raised at home. To make up the balance, the basketball and football teams played 15 and 32 matches respectively to collect money during a 4-month tour to Hong Kong, Saigon, Manila, Bangkok, Singapore, Rangoon and Calcutta before they arrived in London in late July, just in time for the Olympic Games. To cut down expenses, the delegation brought the needed food with it, amounting to 4 tons for 48 persons. The results in competitions were quite disappointing, without a single point to the delegation's credit. To do justice to the athletes, they had done their utmost. Take Lo Wen'ao, for instance. He was a deaf mute and took part in the 10,000-meter and marathon races, during which he developed blisters all over his feet, wearing a pair of ordinary shoes made of rubber soles and cloth uppers. The Chinese basketball team placed 18th among the 23 participating squads. The Chinese cyclist, He Haohua, was second in the race, but fell from his bike near the finish to dash his hopes for a silver. What was most embarrassing for the Chinese delegation was that it had to borrow money all the way back home. For all their poor athletic performances and hardships they met with, the Chinese Olympians would never forget the British people's goodwill and friendship towards them, as expressed in the children's hunt for their autographs, the Londoners' invitations to their homes, and the royal reception at Buckingham Palace.
Listening activity number 12. Keeping fit. You will hear a talk on spare time activities and sports. Listen to the talk and complete the table. And now, here are the results of our survey on spare time activities and sports. We wanted to know how students spend their spare time, so we interviewed girls and boys on the campus during the whole of last week. Here is what we found out. 60% of the boys interviewed claimed to do some kind of physical exercise, while 40% of the girls we talked to said that they follow a regular program of exercise. We also talked about watching sport on TV, and both groups claimed to spend some time on this. 34% of boys and 18% of girls interviewed do this. We also wanted to find out exactly what form of exercise these students do, so we asked about different sports and activities. Jogging was by far the most popular, with 16% of boys and 15% of girls. Most of them do this during the week, either in the morning, before going to study, or in the afternoon or evening after school. Basketball was also a popular sport among the two groups. 16% of boys claimed to play, and 8% of girls played after the classes. Football was also popular with the men. 17% claimed to play, mainly in the afternoons or at the weekends. Not surprisingly, none of the women claimed to play. A lot of students also said they took some form of exercise other than these team sports. For example, aerobics. 3% of boys and 8% of girls said they did this regularly. And also yoga. 2% of boys and 5% of girls mentioned doing this as a form of exercise. Dancing was also mentioned as a form of exercise, with 4% of girls and boys. Finally, weightlifting was another sport among the boys, with 2% claiming to do it. Again, no women mentioned this sport.